Welcome, guys. We're going to do a baby edition of Split the Veil for October because Jordan was moving. I already know how you like your apartment because you told me last time we tried to record this.
Yeah. So in case anyone is wondering, I did move. So both of my past couple of weekends have been totally filled up. And so we didn't have time to record. I do like my apartment. It's cool. But I just realized something. So to let people know, we technically already recorded what's going to be the November episode before doing this mini episode. Mm-hmm. So yeah, this now becomes, and I've always thought this is fun when podcasts do this. This episode is now technically 4.5.
Oh, 4.5. Here we go. All right.
Because I said on the other one, episode 5, which technically it is because it's a full episode. This is going to be a mini episode. So this is episode 4.5.
All right. I like it's kind of, did you ever watch Lion King 1.5?
I did, but I forgot.
I did too. I just remember being like a little kid and go, wow, this is a hot piece of garbage. Anyway, so on our little baby episode, what we want to do is just kind of go over Mike Laidlaw leaving and then the leak that happened. We're going to start off with Laidlaw first because that's real and something we want to talk about. All right. So I guess ever since it kind of came out, the subreddit has, especially on the post it was on, everyone's been freaking out about him leaving because it means that like it's going to turn out like Mass Effect Andromeda, Dragon Age 4 is going to be garbage, blah 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 blah. And I had a giant post about it, and thankfully it's gotten some attention because I want other people to realize this, guys, it's gonna be okay, to calm down. So I guess my main points in the post was this isn't actually the first time in the Dragon Age history that a creative director has left in the middle of a game. It actually happened to Dragon Age Origins. I did not know that, so thanks to Reddit user JW Chen, or his Twitter handle is Octafluoride. He was able to PM me, because I didn't know this at all. The first creative director for Dragon Age Origins was Brent Knowles, and he actually left in the middle of production just because he wanted a new job. And he just wanted to do something else. And I think this is what we're seeing with Laidlaw, because Knowles was with the company for 10 years. Laidlaw has been with 14. And then the way that Knowles described it in a blog post he wrote, like, the job can get really tedious. And, like, after, like, a decade, you probably want to do something else for a little bit. So,
right.
Do you have an opinion on that, or?
No, I mean, just kind of in general, I agree. I mean, especially like millennials now, what are we like? Our terms at companies are now like 5 years or less. Like This guy spent 14 years. You want something new. Yeah.
So I also want to say, like, there's going to be a lot of people, and I've already been seeing it, like, why did he leave? Why did he leave? Why did he leave? We are not owed an explanation for all of the reasons he chose to leave. And I kind of want to get that clear because this is his personal life. There could have been 100,000 different reasons he could have left that has nothing to do with Dragon Age. And I think that we need to, like, just let it go. He left. He's done. It's kind of like a breakup, guys. I know you want to know why your ex-girlfriend or boyfriend left you, but just let it go. You don't need to know. It's really not that important. It's really not going to affect anything.
And also, it could just be, I mean, it's personal, but it could also just be one of those purely practical professional moves, which I feel like a lot of times in entertainment and sports, people forget that and they take it very personal. It's like, no, you as a professional, when you get a chance to make more money or be in a different city or have more responsibility somehow, you leave. Doesn't mean you didn't care about the people you worked with before, but sometimes you just leave because it's a different or better professional opportunity.
Yeah.
And sometimes people kind of forget, like, yes, they're creatives and yes, they make stories and universes that we love. But if he's like, oh, I'm going to make 10 grand a year more over here, or be in a different city, or have the next step up in my career, it's time to go.
Exactly. And, like, I love Dragon Age, but even I don't know if I would be able to spend all day, every day doing everything Dragon Age for 15 years around that time. Like, that's a long time to just be completely focused on one thing. So, like, I totally get why he wants to leave. If that's all the reasons that we know about, that's fine. Another reason you guys don't need to be worried is when it comes to at least comparing this to Mass Effect Andromeda. Even though a lot of people did leave the MEA team, it wasn't the main reason why things failed. I always forget the guy's name, Schreier?
Yeah, Jason Schreier from Kotaku.
Yeah, the really great article that he did, when he describes what was going on, one of the major issues was that they were having a lot of technology issues. They wanted to do something kind of before No Man's Sky was even announced. They wanted to have like randomly generated planets and stuff like that, and the game would be about exploration. And they didn't and they tried to do this with the Frostbite engine, and it didn't actually work out. And they didn't actually change gears until the end of 2015. And so the Andromeda that we know like is actually pulled together from those pieces in a year. We've talked about this more in detail on our Mass Effect Andromeda It Does It Suck episode. So check that out if you want to hear us talk about that in detail. But this is different from the Dragon Age because at the very least they kind of know what they're doing because Gator's left them notes. Like they kind of ought to have a piece together. Like we gotta hunt down Solus, we gotta do X, Y, or Z. Like there's a list of things they need to be getting done. It's not as open wide and as chaotic as Andromeda was, so you don't have to worry. At least right now, if we see a bunch of people leaving, maybe it's time to worry. But even then, like it could still be a good game because at least they have more direction.
Yeah, that's super important because for those two reasons that you stated. One, the creative outline really seems like it has been laid out already. And then the Mass Effect Andromeda thing, that was a management and a procedural and those were practical problems. I mean, there were some creative problems, but I feel like they all stemmed from the fact that the timing was not set up. The framework from the practical aspect of production was not put in place early enough and was not kept consistent enough so that the creative team could succeed. Maybe they could have had better output from their creative staff, but ultimately your production people need to put the framework in place so that the creative people have enough time. They're not being interrupted. They're not having these technology things get in the way of their vision for the story. And not to make it about Andromeda, but just like it's worth noting that like BioWare Montreal, with all due respect to the professionals that were running that studio, they had some leadership issues. One of the basic things in any business that's going to be successful on any big long-term project is you have to set up scope. You have to set up the scope of your project. You have to know what it is. You have to have foresight and vision to account for some changes in scope along the way. But you should not be having these huge variations between like, we're going to have procedurally generated worlds or we're not going to have procedurally generated worlds. And half the team is using this tool and the other half of the team doesn't even know how to use the tool. And it's like, okay, those are like basic business management level things that should have been addressed. That's really not the same thing as a creative director leaving. Those are really totally different things. And so, maybe there's some concern about a creative director leaving, but it's not at all the same thing as what happened to Andromeda. Yeah,
I will also say another complaint that happened, at least in the article, was that BioWare Montreal was really pissed off at the company because a lot of the quote-unquote best members of the team were taken on to BioWare Edmonton to work on, and I think the article says both Anthem and Dragon Age. So I think that they are definitely putting, for some reason, I don't know why Mass Effect got shafted. Maybe they just saw early on, like, oh, this ain't going to work out. But, like, Edmonton is supposed to be, like, the
core studio.
Yeah, the A team. So, the core studio, the A team. So, I don't think it's time to worry about it yet. I don't see, at least from him leaving, I just see this dude as making a career move. Same thing with Gator. I don't think this is about the game being a clusterfuck and they're just trying to get out of a shithole project before their name's too attached to it. I don't see that at all. Maybe, like, I will give the Warriors this, like, maybe it might happen in the future, but I don't see the signs right now. Do you agree?
No, I agree, and it's like, look, DA4 is still at Edmonton, and it's still underneath that A team, and so all of the other chief talent, all of the other, like I said, production elements, like the really streamlined production aspects, those are all in place. The creative outline's already been there, so yeah, I kind of still feel like we're on pace for that same sort of A team level product.
Yeah, so I think the only reason I really wanted to bring up him leaving is just to. There's been, especially in game journalism, which has been driving me crazy, there's so much like, let's bring up the drama, let's do this and do that or whatever. And I think like the community's almost getting used to whenever we hear news that's not 100% positive, everyone freaks out and assumes the worst. So I just want some voice. It doesn't even have to be mine. It could be whoever. It's just someone saying, guys, it's gonna be all right. This is just... Let's have a calm down. It's really not that big of a deal, guys. It's gonna be okay.
Game. Did you say game journalism? Journal is that a thing in gaming? I thought it was called gaming clickbait circle jerk blog community.
We want ethics in our gaming journalism. I'll be honest. It's been so long since the what was that? It's not Pizzagate. Fuck. What's something gate?
Gamergate.
Gamergate. There we go. I don't know. What even is Pizzagate? I've heard that a couple times. I don't know. What
let's not even get into Pizzagate.
Isn't whatever. Gamergate.
We're going to get pulled off YouTube if we go on to Pizzagate.
Oh, God. What did I say? Jesus Christ. It's like something I see sometimes, and I'm like, oh, it's pizza.
I agree with you. Like, this is just like a little aside. I agree with you. Thank you for being the voice of calm, because I kind of feel like the backlash to companies being super PR minded, like they sugarcoat everything, but they don't realize that the unintended consequence of that is when you constantly try and put everything into PR speak and make everything sound super nice. It's exactly what you said. People sort of adjust their hearing, so to speak. Like they become more sensitive because they know companies never let the disastrous truth come out, so they always end up reading too much into stuff because they think that it's trying to be hushed up.
Yeah. So I think that's another thing we need to bring up. Like, I don't think Bioware is ever going to come out. I'm probably not even Laidlaw himself is going to come out and say any because I'm sure there's some nitty gritty details. Like, he wouldn't leave a job he was 100% happy for. Maybe he just... like, again, we are not owed an explanation, and he doesn't have to give one, and I don't think we're ever going to give one just because it's professionally kind of shitty to do. So don't start going out to his Twitch streams and knocking on his door and being like, hey, why did you leave? Why did you leave? Why did you leave? Because it's not, it might even be in a contract that he's not allowed to say why he left. So I would be shocked if he ever comes out and, like, actually bullet points out reasons why he left.
And also, like, I always point to the Casey Hudson thing. Like, look, Casey Hudson left as creative director on Mass Effect. He took a really important job with Microsoft's the head of Microsoft's creative division or something like that. He ended up working with HoloLens for a couple of years, and now he's back as studio manager. I'm not saying that's going to happen with Laidlaw, but I'm just saying sometimes it's just like it's a move up somewhere else. You have to take it. Yeah. And in the case of Casey, he's now back. Probably, he said he wants to try and revive Mass Effect, which is like, that's awesome. Yeah.
Well, let's move on to, I guess since we're going on politics theme here, fake news.
Gaming fake news.
Gaming fake news. So if you guys didn't hear about it, I'm sure it's somewhere in the line of communication. When did this happen? Was it a couple weeks ago? I don't remember the exact
I missed
date.
it. Like, I've been so out of the loop, as we said, and then when you let me know a couple days ago, I was like, oh, wait, really?
I tweeted about it on, I think it was October 3rd. Someone on Reddit posted, like, hey, you guys, check this out. And someone on 4chan had posted a Dragon Age 4 leak. And apparently this guy, actually, I don't know if he mentioned if this dude... how he got this information or if he worked there. They do say that this information is a year old and some story points may be changed later on in development. So I think I have a friend who is really into 4chan, and he's exactly what you think of as if you think of 4chan, so he's an interesting guy. But I kind of, from what I gather, so this is on board V. And I know nothing about 4chan, but at least from what I heard from this guy, V, no one would post a leak there, and this is apparently the place that idiots go to. I don't know if that's true. I don't know what it is, but I think that if that's kind of the reputation that this place has, that does need to be out onto the open. But I since you've read through it, what is your, I guess, gut reaction to the information that was in it?
my gut reaction to the top of it is like, honestly, at first it was kind of good. I was like, okay, I didn't really think too much of it. Some of the concepts seemed plausible to me. I mean, some of the stuff like in the first couple of bullet points, like the top level stuff, like the fact that we're, obviously going to go to Tevinter, spend a lot of time in Minrathous, maybe end up in Sahara and stuff like that. Like, that's not too off from what we had done. I think maybe on our episode 1 or episode 2, we were talking about our wish list for DA4. So I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, kind of plausible. I just kind of skimmed through it. As I've been going further down the list into some of the lower information in the tidbits, my gut level reaction is that this is bullshit, and it's not.
Yeah.
It's some of it starts to get kind of ridiculous. I like some of the stuff on the top. I like the idea of a big open world city, like one city really being the mainstay or the hub of the world. Like it talks about Minrathous being something like 60% of the game world, that it's going to be 200 times bigger than Denerim and DAO.
Which
and
would be way too big. But
I mean, that would be so massive. It starts to get into like GTA level or like Assassin's Creed level big, which I love. Like I know some people aren't as big a fan of like the recent Assassin's Creed games, but some of the stuff in Victorian London or French Revolution Paris, like it's so big that it's like it feels like a real city. I'm like, yeah, that would be cool. You start to go down though, and some of the things, the first one that I immediately set off the red flag, and this is something I know you feel very strongly about, as we talked about on our DA2 retrospect, is it says that one of the things is that your character can only be human for story reasons. So no Qunari, no dwarf, no elf. And that was immediately like a red flag, because I'm like, okay, Bioware is pretty good. Even when they make missteps, they're pretty good at listening to the community. And the community hated that in DA2, and it's already been corrected. Why would they go back to that,
Yeah, I will say, like, we're not going to go point by point on this list here because that would take forever. So, so I don't know if you know who Jackdaw is, but he made a video going point by point and just kind of reading it out. So if you want to hear the exact thing, check out his video on it.
I love Jackdaw, by the way. He has a great YouTube channel.
Yeah, he also has he has a very nice. It's the English accent. I'm sorry. It sounds nice.
His voice is great.
Yeah. So I think my voice is like, I think of a bit of a southern twinge in mine into. But okay, anyway. But so I kind of only want to go point by the things that really stood out to me of being bullshit. And yeah, the human one, which interesting to note here, and I guess this is, I think it was Laidlaw, I can't remember. Someone tweeted at Laidlaw asking if they could do a in the next Dragon Age, if they could have like class-specific cutscenes, and he was basically kind of giving on like a little lecture on like why that would be implausible, like the money involved. And one of the points in that lecture was that you also have to include the 4 different races in that budget. And I think maybe that's also kind of a hint to say like we have like, because if it was just the 3 different classes for one race, that might be plausible to do, but with 4 different races, suddenly it gets unwieldy, and that's why they're not going to do it.
Right.
So I think that's another hint that like there are going to be more races than just human. Another thing that caught my eye, that being like, that's weird. It says there's a character creation filter on being homosexual, heterosexual, or bi, and influence some dialogue line as well as romance options. I just don't even think that's necessary. Like that seems like overly complicated. Like, you don't need to click a button and say if you're gay, straight, or bi. Like, it could even be something like I don't fix what isn't broken. I don't think the current standard of like we just kind of go in and you could choose what sexuality you want in the midst of the game. Like, I think that works. Why would they choose? I don't know. That seems like a really weird option, and it just doesn't seem real to me.
Yeah, that one in particular seems either like a mix of pandering or just like a ham-fisted approach to, like you said, something that's actually been handled, fairly decently. Mm-hmm. Occasionally there are missteps, or occasionally there are things that bother, people on one side of that debate or the other. But it's just like, it's dealt with fairly eloquently, and to the extent that it's not, I appreciate the organic nature of conversations, even if there is a misstep, even if there is someone treading down, like there's a flirt option you didn't realize was a flirt option, or a character flirting with your character and it's not going to be reciprocated for whatever reason. It's like, hey, you know what? Wouldn't you look at that? Something sort of similar to real life kind of a thing. It's like, just deal with it.
Yeah.
Like you don't wear that, or at least most people don't, wear that part of themselves like as a toggle switch or as like a name tag. Like, people don't know. It's part of something that's discovered through conversation.
Yeah. And like that's something they've even been exploring since Origins, because if you talk with Zevran enough, at one point he'll flirt with you, and then he'll kind of go on. It's like, well, did I step over my bounds? And you were given the choice to say, yes, you did, versus no, I actually like the flirting.
Yeah.
And I think that's a much more interesting system to just go, gay, straight, bi. That's
right.
it. So I think, like, if they were to ever do that, that would be really stupid, I'll be honest. Another thing that point out to me is that this has almost way too many Dragon Age 2 references, I'm going to say, to make it seem real to me. One, we said the human only. Two, it says the character's name is Lanius, I think. Linnaeus. Mm-hmm. And if you Google it, it's actually a type of bird, much like hawk. So I think that's another kind of like, oh, isn't that fun? And I don't think they would do that again, I guess is my thing. Like, I don't think that they would name another protagonist after a bird. Like, that just seems too much like Dragon Age 2. And something we were also talking about, it says you'll have 7 companions, 4 males, 3 females. And if you take out the siblings, that's pretty much the exact explanation of your companions in Dragon Age 2. You have 4 males, 3 females. So...
Yeah, you noticed that pattern, which I thought was like a really good call out, like on a macro level, if you look at it as a whole, that's there. And then also it says even that, it's going to be more family focused and you're going to have a dead sibling also.
Which is exactly like Dragon Age 2. Right. And it also says, I'm looking at now, will be more like DA2 combat and will have a vastly improved tactic sim system similar to Dragon Age Origins. Wow, I butchered that. But why would they... Like, I thought the Inquisition combat was a lot better than 2. What do you think?
That's debatable. So I will say this.
All right.
It's an interesting choice of words. I don't know why they would say more like DA2 combat and then vastly improved tactic system similar to DAO, because the tactic system is actually pretty similar in DAO and 2, but I kind of feel like it's a little bit better in DAO. And so, like, nobody normally calls out the combat system in DA2 as being the best, certainly. Normally, people either pick Inquisition or they pick DAO. So that is another thing, like, where I notice this whole thing seems like someone who really likes DA2. I don't know.
Yeah. Someone pointed out, I don't know if it was here on the Reddit, it was like, this isn't Dragon Age 4, this is DA2 too.
Yeah.
So... which another thing I want to say on the improved tactic system similar to Dragon Age Origins, they've already said they're not going to be doing tactics again. So I think that's another like ding ding, it's fake, guys.
It's like super sad face, by the way, that they're not going to do tactics again.
So I completely agree. Although I wasn't like married to the tactic system, so I'm like not like super upset about it. But I am hoping, and every night I go to bed and I kneel by my little bed and I say, God, can I just have that Dragon Age tactics game? Because that's all I really want in life. If that's what happens to the tactics thing, then I will gladly give up any tactics in any other Dragon Age game if I get that Dragon Age tactics game. Because I'm loving Divinity Original Sin, and I would love a Dragon Age version of that. But anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Another thing that kind of we brought up is Solus. And his...
Do we want to get into the ridiculous parts of this list?
Yeah, because that one's my favorite, to be honest.
Where is it? So, you want to read it directly as it's written in there because it's hilarious.
Do you have it pulled up? Because I don't.
Oh, hold on. I'm trying to find it.
There's a whole... I'm actually looking at the... actual 4chan thread, which if you want to look at the 4chan thread, it has been saved by whatever managers do the... 4chan's magic. I
have it. I have it pulled up.
You have it?
This is great bullet point where it's like random. I guess this is under the heading of, what is it, story tidbits or something like that. So it's just like random bullet points. And it just says, after giant meteoric balls of fire killed off pretty much the entire army of the Tevinters and the Qunari, the giant figure is revealed to be Solus, but is called and calls himself Salos. It's just spelled Salos. And I just go like, wait a minute, Solus has all this meaning and like the meaning of the word in the Elven language, and there's a place on the map. Like there's all these different reasons why the guy is called Solus. But like apparently he's big now. He's giant, and he has like the thematic flair of a 12-year-old who's now like, but now I'm Salos.
I want to believe in this version of the game, he also has like a little evil mustache.
Yeah, so he puts his hands on his hips.
Yeah, he has like a little top hat. It's like, I am Salos. I am here to take down the bear. Like, it's just really bad. So I will say that if for whatever reason God isn't real and this actually is for whatever reason. And I can easily see the details not working in here, being someone who works at Bioware and is leaking this and doesn't understand. And maybe Salos is just the fill-in name and they'll come up with something cool later. I will give them that. Like, that might be what's going on, but, like, it just doesn't work in my mind. Which, another thing that confuses me on the Salos thing, like, I almost feel like it could, not that the name Salos works, but, like, the idea of him changing his name works, because there is some proof in a way that when elven figures, they go through some sort of change, or, like, a belief system change, they do change their name. We've seen that with Abelas, we've seen that with even Solus, it's been hinted at. So I get if for some reason he just changed his name in the game, like, it would make sense lore-wise, but it just doesn't make sense from a gameplay mechanic, because that would confuse everyone who isn't ass-deep in lore like I am. Like, why did this asshole just change his name randomly? Like, it seems like a really bad design decision.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree, and you're right. Like, I mean, Flemeth has tons of names and things like that, so... Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. I mean, there could be some element. And Solus, I mean, technically, you know, can go by a couple of different names, but Salos is just so, it's like...
It's so bad. It's so
And where's the other one about the 4-man commando team?
Oh, yeah. I just scrolled out. Well, oh, wait. I found it. Okay. You're a part of a 4-man specialist commando force, including yourself, a woman named Eva Scala, which is the commander, one warrior named Constantius, and a rogue named Justin.
It's like at the end, it's like, yeah, and some dude named Justin.
Like, I really want Justin to just be, like, really bad at his job. Now I almost want this game to exist now, just because it would just be so ridiculous.
It's like Justin, Ben, Bob, Henry.
I do want to go into, like, a little of, like, lore persnickety reasons why I don't think this is going to work. My biggest one was they mentioned that you get to go to the Grand Cathedral of Dumat in Minrathous. I will say that the worship of Dragon Age or dragon gods in Tevinter was outlawed and also very, very frowned upon. If the Grand Cathedral, they changed all the Grand Cathedrals to something else. The Mage Tower in Minrathous was the Grand Cathedral of Razakale. So whatever the Grand Cathedral of Dumat was, it is now something else. So maybe we go to it, but it would not be called the Grand Cathedral of Dumat. It would be like the library of whatever. So that kind of made me go like, okay. Another thing, apparently this starts in 951 Dragon. Like, what the fuck has Solus been doing for six years, you know? Like,
right.
No, not even that. The game hold on. Okay, the game ends in 944, so that's like 7 years. What has been going on for 7 years? That doesn't make any sense.
Especially the way Trespasser leaves off. It's not like, hey, we're going to do I mean, it could be, but you're right. What has he been up to?
Yeah, like at the end of Trespasser, it kind of felt like we're doing this now. There's a time limit. We got to figure out what shit that's going on.
Right.
And it's 7 years later. Like, that doesn't work at all. It really, like, takes away the emergency on it. I think, like, if you're going to make it 7 years later, the only reason it would work is that if the veil was already down and we're cleaning up the mess that Solus made, and which would not fit with what the story is at all. So, I guess. Also, another thing, it describes it as the opening scene as Solus fighting both the Qunari and the Tevinter in, like, a 3-way battle. That doesn't seem like a Solus move to me. Like, I don't imagine Solus making this huge, big thing and be like, world, I am here. He's already done that with the Inquisitor. Why would he do that again? I don't know. It doesn't seem plausible to me. I don't know. That's just me being a Sovellan at heart. Another thing I wanted to bring up is at one point someone asked, like, are we going to see anyone from the comics? And he says no. That right there seems like a whole bunch of bullshit. Right. we fucking see Mayveris Tolani and the Dragon Age Inquisition slideshow for where Dorian is, and he says Dorian shows up, but then May doesn't. Like, they're partners right now, they're working together. That doesn't make any sense. And so, like, okay, maybe this guy didn't know May was a comic book character, whatever. Well, the last of the two comic books, both Mage Killer and what's the one, the Knight Errant, like, they're talking about, they end it with them going to Tevinter. Why would they do that if they weren't going to show up at all? That makes no sense.
There's so much. I mean, I'm glad you're debunking. So, first of all, boom, leakers, you just got shut down by our official, unofficial YouTube, Reddit, Dragon Age lore master. There's a million reasons why this wouldn't work, but then also just like the practical stuff of like after like Justin and Salos, and I just found this other one like where it's saying that you're going to get missions assigned by the general commander whose name is Maximus Decimus.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Fucking Maximus from Gladiator. Like, who is making this up?
Yeah, I think that's the guy I was talking about. Like, I googled him, and it is just the...
It's Russell Crowe!
It's fucking Russell Crowe. So, like, it is literally the name of the dude in the Gladiator.
And then it tries to save it by, like, in parentheses, it says, like, there's loads of references to Rome. And we're like, that's not a reference, bro. That's Maximus. It's Russell Crowe.
Yeah, like, is it, the true story? Was there actually a Maximus?
Yeah,
that's one thing I do want to add.
I think it is, but it's still just like, I mean, that's such a cultural reference at this point. Like,
yeah, like if you're going to make things to Roman, you would call someone like Aphrodite or Apollo, like something like that. That's a little bit more like not copyright infringement. Like it would be very hard, I think, to get away with Maximus Decimus, who like your average person like doesn't think of Roman whatever. They fucking think of Gladiator. Like, I don't think that's going to work out at all.
And then also, like, the bullet point about how there's going to be a den in Minrathous similar to the Assassin's Dens in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood.
Oh, yeah.
That, to me, is, like... The reason why it seems fake to me is that if there was going to be a mechanic like that, obviously I would assume that internally in Bioware, there's nothing really like that, but the way you would reference it is it would be like an expansion of the war table, not like a reference from some other game that Dragon Age has never really pulled from directly before.
Yeah.
So I kind of feel like that, and the fact that they're kind of trying to shoehorn in like a legendary historical figure, like that's just somebody who just, I don't know, it sounds like something that would happen on V. No disrespect to 4chan. It just sounds like a V thing where they're like, yeah, it's like Dragon Age, but with Assassin's Creed, bro.
So in that same section with gameplay, there's two things. One, it says no new game plus. That one I have a hard time believing because so far since Inquisition and then also Andromeda, like fucking Andromeda had a new game plus. Like it was slight where you're like things just carry over, but it was there.
Right.
Like, and they called it new game plus. So that one I have a hard time believing. It also says, where did it go? Oh, weapons are less Final Fantasy looking. Like, I'm sorry, whoever wrote this. Have you played Final Fantasy? Like, they do not look like Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy weapons are some crazy ass shit. Squall with the gunblade. Yuna's motherfucking, like, granted her, like, main staff is, like, slightly something I could see working in a Bioware, but if you get her, like, other staffs, that shit's insane looking.
Right.
The weapons in Bioware do not look like Final Fantasy weapons. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's a weird, and then also like this is probably one of my favorites too is how like it mentions that in cutscenes there's a large grayish wolf stalking you, and then under that it says you get confronted by the grayish wolf. It finally appears and transforms into a giant 10-foot tall armored figure.
Yeah,
I'm like, what?
Why 10 foot tall? Like, I feel like that downplays the whole Solus thing, where Solus is scary because he is subtle. That takes away all the subtlety and, like, smashes it against the ground and, like, shatters into a million pieces.
Yeah.
What would be cooler is if he just turned to fucking Solus, and a lot like you see at the end of Trespasser, everyone just fucking turns to stone. That's scary. Not a 10-foot tall, like, monster that goes fee fi fo fum. You know, like it's
but now he's 10 feet tall, he has armor, and he's Salos, not Solus.
Salos. Oh, another thing I wanted to bring up, speaking of stupid names, so they also named this game as Dragon Age Retribution.
Oh my god.
If you Google Dragon Age Retribution, there is already things called Dragon Age Retribution. I tweeted about it. Let's see if I can remember it. One of them was a GameSpot article that's talking about apparently a long time ago, there was a Dragon Age Origins sequel that a couple fans were trying to make, and they called it Dragon Age Retribution. And then another one was something from the Escapist magazine where someone just wrote a pick your own adventure kind of thing called Dragon Age Retribution. There would be no way that they would be able to name this thing Dragon Age Retribution. Now, I will say that everyone who's like really dead set into this theory that it's totally true, because it's not, but whatever. Granted, this if you look at this through the eyes of someone who has no idea what the fuck they're talking about, and they didn't know what they were saying, they didn't know how to describe it to us, and this being an extremely early draft from a year ago, by the way, I could kind of see where they're coming from. But another thing I will mention, like, it wasn't even that long ago, it might have been a month at most, Patrick Weeks mentioned in a tweet that they recently had their first major, like, all the writers coming together and sharing their work with one another for a critique. That happened a month ago, and apparently this information from a year ago, they probably didn't actually have a lot of the story written a year ago. Like, they might have had a couple points, like Gator said, but a lot of the story that they mentioned in this post probably hasn't even been written yet. So that's another point in the nail the coffin theory. Yeah,
I think it's definitely, you said it, multiple nails in a big coffin full of fake news bullshit.
Yeah. So I guess that is all I had to say on the leak, quote unquote, and Mike Laidlaw leaving. Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think we just about covered it. We covered some real news, we covered some fake news, and yeah.
All right. Well, I think with that, guys, we will leave you, and in 2 weeks, right? First Friday of November, you will hear from us again. So thank you for joining us extremely late, and Daresh all.